Um, the Senate's decision on Saturday to acquit the former squatter Trump by a vote of 57 to 43, which was a two-thirds majority that was needed to convict, is a modest victory for the Constitution, basically. Whether the 43 senators or all Republicans voted to acquit on the ground that the Senate has no jurisdiction over a private citizen, or on the ground that Trump's January 6th speech or claimed speech was protected by the First Amendment, but the Constitution was vindicated. The Senate Minority Leader Moscow Mitch, in a scathing attack on Trump, explained that his vote to acquit was based in large part on the fact that the former squatter is now a private citizen. Shouldn't have mattered. He should have still been convicted either way. He correctly observed that the Senate does not have a roving commission to impeach and disqualify former office holders. Yes, it does, but to conclude otherwise would be to empower Congress to disempower tens of millions of voters from casting ballots for their candidates of choice. Because the Republicans fucked up here, Trump is now free to run for squatter again in 2024, and hopefully he will lose then. The Senate's decision to acquit Trump also supports the First Amendment, which it really doesn't, but which was intended to protect the kind of controversial and even dangerous speech that he delivered on January 6th near the White House to tens of thousands of sycophants. To have ruled otherwise would have disemboweled the First Amendment in the context of presidential rhetoric about elections. I agree that with Moscow Mitch. I agree with Moscow Mitch when he said that Trump was wrong, and are agreeing that the election was stolen and fraudulent because it wasn't. But the First Amendment protects wrong opinions as surely as it protects correct ones. Trump had as much right to say erroneously that the election was unfair as President Biden has the right to say correctly that he was elected fairly, because Biden was elected fairly, and we have the right to judge each other and to judge each of them and their allegations morally and politically, but not to use them as the basis for impeachment. Now, if Trump were to run for squatter again against Biden in 2024, all Americans can vote based in part on who they think told the truth about the 2020 election, and it wasn't Trump. So, although the Senate vote allows citizens Trump to run it allows the citizen Trump to run for squatter again in 2024, but the trial itself has made it less likely that he will be able to do so successfully. The Democratic House impeachment managers presented a devastating picture of the events at the Capitol and of Trump's moral and political responsibility for creating an atmosphere that may well have contributed to the violence. Moscow Mitch's speech following the Senate's vote agreed with much of that case, but there is an enormous difference between moral and political responsibility on the one hand, and constitutional impeachability consistent with the First Amendment on the other hand. But it is the former that may well determine Trump's political fate. Um, the Klan speech that he gave on January 6th, while constitutionally protected, was irresponsible, especially in light of the rhetoric that preceded it for several months. In my view, and in the view of many thoughtful Americans of both parties, including Moscow Mitch, this election was not stolen. There wasn't any mistakes. There wasn't any mistakes. Even though I don't believe there were mistakes, but some people do believe that there have been some, both of a legal and factual nature. Mistakes are unlikely to have produced enough of a disparity to change the outcome anyway, but Biden, after all, had decisively won both the Electoral College and the popular vote. And there is a heavy burden of proof on those challenging the outcome of an election that's based on the evidence I have seen, but Burden was not satisfied by Trump and his lawyers. And moreover, there are processes for challenging what they call flawed elections. These processes include internal reviews within state election institutions, as well as judicial reviews by the courts. Although I think it would have been better if the courts had conducted more extensive what they call reviews on the merits and the demerits of the claims, but the processes went forward lawfully and fairly. Um, um, Trump is wrong, in my view, and he was wrong to not concede after it became clear that he exhausted all appropriate remedies, and he was wrong not to attend the Biden inauguration. He was also wrong to call on his sycophants to descend to the Capitol on the day that the members of the House and Senate were certifying the Electoral College votes for Biden. He had the constitutional right to say what he said, but he was wrong, in my view, and that of Moscow Mitch and many others, to exercise that right in the manner that he did. History would judge Trump harshly for his conduct between November 6th and January 20th, but history will also harshly judge those congressional Democrats and Republicans who organized and voted for the two impeachments of Trump for conduct that does not come within the constitutional criteria authorized an impeachment. Technically, it was right to impeach him. The position may anger both opponents and supporters of and the sycophants of Trump, but it also should, but it should please all those who place allegiance to the Constitution above allegiance to a person or party. Yeah.